I was actually at Bitcoin conference and I had a big stack on me and I went up to I think it was coin flip. I had like 4 phones on me because they were saying how, there's no fees. And when you buy it from here at the conference, and I was like, oh shit, stacking time. So I took all my devices and I took a huge wad. I stood next to their ATM. It was really funny too, the silence as they hear the machine go because it's sticking in bills. Then after I was done with the first amount, I took out my next device, and one of the reps there, he was like, hey, you can't do that. It's only like once per time. And I was like, what? You're going to prevent me from having freedom? You're not going to let me use money to get real money? I can't. Isn't that the antithesis of what this is about? I can't actually use my money? And they just shut up.
Welcome back to another episode of Cypherpunk'd. Today we're sitting down with my buddy, secret boss character, who goes by the pseudonym IMG is Lost on X. He's a former Guitar Hero developer, turned into a Bitcoin privacy advocate, and from gaming to cryptocurrency, dust attacks, DOJ encounters, secret boss character's journey embodies the Wild West nature of Bitcoin's evolution. Let's dive in. Welcome, brother.
Thank you. Just real quick, I really appreciate having an opportunity and you guys letting me do everything. And because it's kind of, it's a bit of therapy for me to be able to talk, because you can't really talk about Bitcoin with regular people. You got to kind of find real ones.
Mm-hmm.
And
we're trying to change that, but
yeah.
I hear you, brother. I totally hear you.
Yeah.
So nothing's off limits. We can talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Some kind of joke here, sexual innuendo joke. But yeah, no. Where should we start?
So talk to us about, working as a developer for Guitar Hero and how you became involved in Bitcoin.
Okay, yeah, that's probably the best way to start. So basically, I didn't know, I moved out to California and I didn't know what I wanted to do in my life, because before that I was just kind of working hospitality industry, like front desk and stuff. And then I moved out there and I knew that I didn't want to be stuck in hospitality, working like a retail or anything like that. So I was just browsing Craigslist and I found an ad for a focus group test. And they were like, do you like Guitar Hero? Do you play Guitar Hero and Rock Band? And I was like, yeah, sure. And so one thing led to the other. And I talked to the guy that was running the whole thing. And he was like, well, your feedback's really solid. Like your writing's really detailed and good. And he's like, just put in your resume and we'll see what happens from there. And like one thing led to another. And I started working QA, and then started doing a little bit of dev work too. And then the whole franchise went to shit. They just like ended it because Call of Duty was like the main thing. So I had to move on and find more game industry positions. So I moved on to localization testing and stuff. And it was a very niche company that would take Japanese games and they'd, translate them to English and stuff. And my boss at the time, he was like, hey, why don't you move in with me to save on rent and stuff?
Sounds a little sketchy.
Yeah. I feel, because we had such a good rapport and stuff, that I figured like, yeah, I mean, like save some money on rent and everything. And so at the same time, after I moved in and there was, I didn't even know what I was getting into. He had 2 other roommates with him and his wife. And after I moved in, like a month or so after I moved in, he's like, by the way, my wife's pregnant. And I was like, because they just bought this house, and it's not like the biggest house. It's kind of like a smaller, like, 2 and 2. And I was like, well, I'm not going to stay here when you're having your baby, bro. Like, so the other guy the one guy was a coworker with us, and then the other guy was some guy from Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And he was basically, like, literally the guy on the couch. He just laid down on the couch. He was a bartender, like sochu or something, bartender. And he just was on his laptop. And he was just like looking at Bitcoin and trading Bitcoin and like all that. And they knew that I had some money because I bought a bunch of NVIDIA way back.
Like NVIDIA stock or
NVIDIA
GPUs?
The stock.
Okay.
Because this was when they were all talking about self-drive and the partnership with Tesla. And it was like no one really knew about it. And I kind of knew about it because game industry. And I was like talking to my dad about it. And he was like, well, you have a portfolio that I built up for you. And I didn't even know. He bought a bunch of Exxon.
Oh, wow.
So he just had, drip of Exxon into this account for me over like years. And at the time, Exxon was like garbage. Like the stock was terrible. So I was like, it's not doing anything. Why don't I just sell all of it for NVIDIA? And then it just went crazy, simultaneous with Bitcoin, sort of. But like I said, they knew that I had some NVIDIA shares. So the guy was like, have you ever heard of Bitcoin? And I was like, no. And he's like, it's this thing that trades 24/7. I think you'd be interested. And I was like, and I was like, doesn't Buffett and Munger, don't they like shit on it all the time? They don't like it. And like, it's terrible. So I didn't pay any attention to it at all, actually. And I was still trying to think like, where am I going to move to? And then we were at work again. And one of other coworkers at the, localization thing, he was Chinese MMA fighter guy, like semi-pro or whatever. And he was like, yeah, have you ever heard of Bitcoin? It's going to be like the new monetary system of the world and all this stuff. And like whoever owns it is going to be. And I was just like, okay, what the hell is this thing? And I did a little research into it. And it wasn't really until I moved out from the place, because I moved out and I found like a beach house. And then when I was like, finally had time to think and everything to myself, I actually saw the white paper and I started to read it. And I'm not an engineer or anything, but I kind of understood it. And that was when I like had this, there's only like a few times in my life where I've had like this epiphany moment.
It was like a religious moment when I read it.
Yeah.
It was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
You kind of get this like, get the goosebumps.
Yeah,
right?
I got the goosebumps.
I still remember exactly
I was sitting
how I felt when I read that.
Yeah.
Like, just kind of a really strange feeling.
I like literally was sitting on my bed and I was just reading it from my iPad and I was like, oh fuck. And I sort of like, I kind of got a bit emotional. Like I kind of cried a minute because I was like, this shit is like crazy. And it's going to like destroy trading and everything. Like, cause you don't trade it. You don't do anything. It's just like power, like absolute power. It's like crazy. But so that made me basically sell all of my NVIDIA. And this was before the mega run. So I felt like an ass because I basically sold my NVIDIA at the top, that local top at the time, to buy the 20,000 top of Bitcoin. And I was just like, watching it all go down, and NVIDIA kind of went down too, but it was nowhere near. But at the same time, I was like, well, if this thing really is going to work out, like, then it won't matter. So, and also I'd like to have true control over my money because, like, I'm just using like E-Trade or whatever. So I explained it after that. I explained it to my dad. And my dad was actually the first, he bought our first Bitcoin through Coinbase. And this was like, this was actually a little bit before I sold the NVIDIA. And he bought the coin, and then I saw it run up, and then that's what happened. And then I sold the NVIDIA, and then I bought the top. Mm-hmm. But we were still looking at it because we came from the real estate industry. Basically, we had a lot of property in downtown New York City, like big apartment buildings, like a lot of apartment buildings. Mm-hmm. And we also had a couple properties just all, up and down the East Coast, Carolinas and stuff. And he was like, he already experienced the 2008 crash. Uh-huh. So he knew about stocks and the market because we had a guy from like Merrill Lynch, and he was helping us with trades and stuff. And that's how we got some money, but that's how we also lost a lot of money. So he was like, of course, don't trust the market because the market is just one giant rigged game and you'll never win because like it's just. So he was like, find something though, because we're not going to be in the real estate industry for very long because they're getting older, they want to retire. And, you know, the only thing that's there is like metals, you know, like, so, but he was like, just find something that's good for us to invest in. So when I found Bitcoin, he was like, oh shit. And then he was interested in it. And, so eventually, sorry, I'm a little bit tangenty here.
No, keep talking.
So eventually we had 2020 happen with COVID because I wasn't working in the game industry anymore because there was this massive lull in the industry between Activision and all the other game industries. They were all basically doing overseas, you know, like outsourcing everything. So that's why I was kind of like, I don't know what to do. So we were gonna sell. So I moved out from LA back here to Florida. I know I'm fucking up OPSEC here. And
don't worry, there's hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah, I know,
from
right?
California to Florida. I think that's the biggest migration destination that's ever occurred. I think I saw something like close to 500,000 people have moved from California to Florida, and then almost another quarter, 500,000 from California and New York to Texas. I mean, it's just crazy people fleeing.
Yeah,
these poorly managed.
This is more recent.
States.
Yeah, see, when I moved, I was lucky because I did it right in 2020 of October. Oh, wow. So right before COVID hit. That's
brilliant. Yeah.
So I came back here and we were able to somehow manage to do a bulk sale of all of the real estate.
Wow. So you got out ahead of COVID in places like New York?
And we put
Wow, that's genius.
So we had, at the same time, that was when BlockFi was around.
BlockFi, yeah.
So we had Coinbase, I didn't have like a crazy amount of like purchasing power. Mm-hmm. But with BlockFi we did. And because we were explaining the situation a little bit to them. And we also like the yield thing.
Yeah. I got caught up and I lost a little bit of money on BlockFi, and I know a lot of people who did. I mean, I was looking at of course, you never put your whole stack in anything, so it was like not a significant amount. It was like a small amount, but looking at like, I think it was BlockFi, Nexo, Celsius, and like Celsius and Nexo were, in my mind, like giving really unrealistic yields, and BlockFi was like, it was like 4%, 5%. I'm like, okay, like, this is reasonable. Like, it doesn't seem like you're doing something super risky here. Mm-hmm. I spoke to Zach Prince, their CEO, very briefly, I think on X or something like that. And he just seemed like a, reasonable guy. It seemed like they had a reasonable business plan. But so sad to see that whole thing blow up. But
Yeah.
hopefully you got off the ship before it
No,
sailed.
yeah. So yes and no, because we got in when they first started,
Mhm.
and that was because it was like the first ever yield company, for Bitcoin. So we basically took the proceeds from the sales from our Bank of America, and we transferred the wire. It was like a crazy wire over to BlockFi, and we just bought as much coin as possible.
Wow.
And we were calling customer service because we were like, "Hey, man, you got to raise our limits because like we're trying to buy more and so it was like eventually, so we got it all, and we sat, and we actually got some yield.
Yeah.
We got a few
were paying out
coins.
yield for a while. Yeah, no doubt.
And they decreased their yield after a month or two.
I mean, I was thinking like, okay, this is realistic. It's changing with the market. Celsius was going up. Of like, I got my family members coming to me like, this is not realistic. Like, do not do this. This seems extremely risky. And I was wrong about BlockFi. I thought they were the responsible adult in the room. I'm like, these yields are more realistic, but I guess everybody was lending to like these those guys, those scammers. I can't remember the guy's name off the top of my head. So I don't want to mess it up, but Suzu and some of these other guys, I don't know exactly their names, but Kyle something or and they were just taking the money and leveraging it and like doing.
I didn't know that any of that stuff was even like happening, because I was just so new to Bitcoin. I didn't even know about like blockchain, like how the blockchain worked. And like I knew self-custody because of Coinbase and having a Trezor and everything. But I didn't know anything about running your own node. So all my transactions that I did after I withdrew, I was using someone else's node. I was using Electrum at the time, and I did the withdrawal into my Trezor, and I thought everything was going to be okay. And then I looked about a few months later, like maybe 2-3 months later, we already withdrew, because I was talking to my dad about the yield thing, and I was like, this thing seems way too good to be true. And also there's that little piece of clause at the bottom that they had in their thing that's like, we're not responsible if anything should happen. So
you're that to me was, I was happy to see that, because it tells you, hey, there's risk here, and you're getting compensated,
and like the risk, not FDIC insured and all that stuff.
You just didn't know exactly what they were doing with it, and I just, again, a fool and their money are soon parted. But when I compared Celsius to BlockFi, I'm like, okay, BlockFi is doing the responsible adult version of this. There was something with the GBTC carry, the premium and the discount and stuff like that. I think they were lending to doing some of that, but that's kind of what I thought. And, hey, there's not a lot of course there's risk, but it's not, 5-6% yield, 4%. I mean, it's like not, that's like, inline more realistic than a 25% yield or whatever the hell is going on at Celsius.
So, we were doing fine, withdrew to cold after a month or two of getting some yield. And then I was doing a little bit of consolidation, like going from, because I had the Trezor, and then I got another hardware wallet. I forget which. And I was, because I thought that, I had to transfer from one wallet to the other wallet, like physically. I didn't know that you could just like reload the seed keys and like so I was being stupid on chain. And like I said, I didn't have a node. So someone else saw my transactions, and we got dust attacked. And the dust attack UTXO, and I still have it.
Why don't you explain what a dust attack even is?
So a dust attack is basically like someone sends a very small piece of Satoshis to a very large UTXO, say like the Genesis block UTXOs. And then if it ever gets moved, they can just trace where it's going to. And there's nothing that you can really do about that, because everything is public. And if you don't, keep good UTXO management, you'll accidentally mix that in.
Commingle those funds.
Yeah. And then, they'll see all of your transactions from whatever you did from one UTXO to the other. And it's like, you're just screwed. So, I didn't even know what it was myself too. And I talked to one of these other NIMs online about it. And I was like, is someone hacking my wallet? Or is my shit going to get stolen right now? Because it's like, it says in the message that of the dust attack, it was like, we will use anonymity to our full extent or something like that. It was very, and they put it in like elite speak. So I was like, what the fuck do I do? And he's like, you could just like whirlpool it and like use a coin join. And they were talking about this is how I learned about Wasabi, and then I learned about Samurai and running my own node, because he was basically teaching me everything.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And all the way down to KYC, because I didn't realize like when you go to purchase and you use your ID, it's like all attached. So I was just like, well, fuck, man, I can't, sell it and then rebuy it back. No KYC, because it's like such a large sum,
Yeah.
So like, what can I do? He's like, just mix it.
Yeah.
So that way, at least you have some form of protection for forward privacy. So that was basically what I did. And I had a lot of contention between a few other people that I asked. I was like, should I mix it? Like other NIMs that I knew online. I was like, should I do this? Should I not do this? Like, will it red flag me? Like, what the fuck?
So for our listeners, we're going down a lot of rabbit holes that a lot of listeners probably have no clue what we're talking about. You're saying NIMs, what you mean is a pseudonym, like someone who's operating.
Yeah, other Twitter users, like other plebs, And it was also a learning experience, because I learned that a lot of plebs are not, well, I don't know if they're incentivized, but they're just enemies. I don't know what the word would be. They say like, don't do this because I don't know what's going to happen. But it's like, bro, you have no balls. You got to do this, because like, if you don't,
yeah,
it's going to be like what happened now.
There's the argument I always hear from a lot of people. Oh, if you're not doing anything bad, you have nothing to hide, right?
Yeah.
But like, we don't show everybody. We don't want everybody knowing every little transaction we make. We don't want that.
You don't want someone to know how much your net worth is.
Yeah, you don't want every time you go to the, every time you go to the grocery store to buy groceries, you don't want the clerk to be able to see that you went to the sex store with your wife a month ago or whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
not even that. I think about it.
You don't want your boss snooping on your transactions of who you went, bought movie tickets this night or whatever.
Like, just say you had like a massive UTXO and then you went to go buy some ice cream or groceries or whatever, and then the store clerk after hours can just like look at your transactions and be like, oh shit, this guy's got a lot, what's his name? And then like can then just reverse engineer you and find out where you're at. It's like $5 wrench attack all day, baby. So it's like I think that's probably the biggest issue. That's why privacy is like the biggest issue, because it's like right now it's not a form of currency the way that it should be, because
stuff like Monero that has more privacy baked into the chain itself.
Yes, but Monero,
stuff like that.
Yeah, I think Monero's great as a tool for privacy to hot swap it and all that, but it has no storage of value, and that's why it's like a shitcoin. No offense.
Yeah, it's tough to see. Yeah, like, how can you really, without looking at that blockchain, how can you really audit the supply? How do you really know how many coins have been produced? There, again, there's trade-offs with everything.
Yeah. But I what those guys were doing, all the privacy dudes, they were trying to make it so that Bitcoin could have privacy and you could use it as like currency and pay for stuff over the net and like, So
What are your thoughts on things like Liquid and Lightning Network?
they're not real because you're using another layer, and that's not real Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And, those layers, they're beholden to their own rules and stuff. So if those developers really wanted to, I think they could totally wreck everyone's finances and privacy in a way. But like I said, it's all moot because the only real Bitcoin is done on chain.
Yeah.
So
Do you use Lightning at all? I mean,
I did, I did because I really like the concept. So I love the concept of fast transactions when the network gets too bogged down.
Yeah.
Because when you think about it, if everyone suddenly wakes up to this and they start using it as a form of currency, you're gonna need some.
You're gonna have to have
because
cash-like transactions on the side chain or a layer 2. I think it's inevitable.
Yeah, but the problem with the layer, Lightning in particular, is that it's not really private because. And it's also just such a shit show because you can lose so many Satoshis from channels closing. That was what pissed me off a lot. I lost a lot of Satoshis from experimenting.
I was experimenting with a node and a channel and all that. I mean, but can't you just, once the channels are closed, you can call back your coins, right? I mean,
but you still lose some.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I did anyway.
How does that happen?
I guess because they were in limbo or something. Mm-hmm. And when you go to close the channel, it doesn't, there are costs to close the channel or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
at the edge of my technical expertise as well. It's a little still very obfuscated.
Yeah. Because when I was using it, it didn't really work smoothly.
Yeah. I think we're still not quite there with the mainstream adoption, where are we going to end up here?
And when I asked the Samurai guys about it, they were like, don't touch it. Keep a 6-foot pole on it because it's not private. And
I thought that was the whole point of Lightning, though, is that you could kind of take your main chain wallet and take some of those sats and just kind of go into this, almost like this cache-like setup where what you do in Lightning is, not recorded on the main blockchain. It's not searchable.
Yeah, and I mean, if you can't stop people from doing whatever they want to do. So if you want to take a small amount of Satoshis and experiment,
that's the way that's what I did.
People are doing it right now, and by all means, it's good on them. They should learn how to do some stuff and be technical. But also, you got to be aware that it's not a real solution. It's just kind of a convoluted way for corporations and entities to throw advertisers at you to see what you're spending it on. Because if they really wanted to, they could be like, hey, this is what this dude's buying. At least that's from what I know. I just wouldn't want to touch it. I think, I think it's kind of weird too, actually, because a person, I forget her name, but the people who run Lightning Network, they could easily fix this by modifying it a bit so that way the receiver has good privacy again, and then you don't dox the IP of the node and all that. I don't know why they don't do that.
That's an interesting suggestion. Maybe they'll listen to this pod and take a look at that.
Yeah. But yeah, so anyway, just I stopped doing that, and I was just using I did use Wasabi a little bit at first because I liked it more than Electrum. I was using it more so as just a GUI to do UTXO management, and then that was when very similarly along the time when Sparrow dropped. So I just I didn't really coin join with Wasabi, and I basically did everything through I did my UTXO management through Sparrow, and then I did my coin joins because Sparrow didn't have coin join Whirlpool at the time. So I did it all through Samurai. And I just it was a lot. Sorry, I'm a little bit off tangent and
No.
uh
It is a lot at this stage of the game.
yeah, no. So basically, I was talking to the guy. I'll try and backtrack a little bit. So I was talking to a few different guys, and they were saying one guy, he was like, only coin join what you intend to spend. And I was like, well, I'm gonna spend all this shit. Like, so I'm gonna do it to basically all of it. But I intentionally did, I still took, so I intentionally left a little bit not.
Yeah, I mean, I would coin join it as you need to spend it, so nobody can track what you're, you know what I mean? Like, so you have privacy in the merchant you're spending at or whatever. I think that's a very reasonable way to approach things.
Yeah. So, we did a bit. So I coin joined everything and learned about Node. Everything was going all right, and we're
let's talk a little bit about, let's do like a little thought experiment here. What do you see if we get hyper Bitcoinization and Bitcoin takes over as this medium of exchange that everybody uses for day-to-day transactions globally? Obviously on the main chain, that would not we can't have billions of people using the main chain at the same time.
You know what I think it's going to be?
What is the solution there? You think, or do you see Bitcoin as just being this like kind of like digital gold, this global store of value, and then we transact with stuff like
USDC,
and coins, and USDC.
I think it's more probable that if Loomis wants to actually do the Treasury thing,
she does.
Yeah,
She's
and
awesome.
it does work, and we'd get dollar-backed Bitcoin and all that. It's going to be nuts. I think it's more likely that like major companies like Visa or MasterCard will start building up their own little treasury reserve as well. And all those little microtransactions are going to be done through them.
Okay, yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. PayPal's already kind of doing that.
Yeah.
Venmo, PayPal, all these different things. So.
Yeah. Because
they'll be the Lightning network.
Yeah.
You'll have some of your custodial sats there.
Sorry, Lightning network. I don't mean to obsolete you, but
well, in an ideal world, in my opinion, hopefully all options are on the table, right?
Yeah.
You use Lightning, you can. You don't have to.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, whatever, you have complaints about it, that's fine.
It's just
going to have to compete in a free marketplace of ideas.
And it's a matter of acceptance. Because the person that you want to buy it from, the merchants have to accept it.
Yeah.
Otherwise you have to just use what they're using, like Visa and MasterCard.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the more likely outcome. Also, Visa and MasterCard, they don't want to get obsoleted. Those payment companies, they don't want to get obsoleted. So it's more, they'd rather adopt it than fight it.
We're seeing that. I mean, we're starting to see that happen.
But
still very early though.
Yeah. I think the main point of Bitcoin is for just more bigger sums of money to be transferred on a blockchain.
Yeah, that's the way I see Bitcoin too. Like the main chain eventually will be governments and large value transactions. You're buying a house, you're buying a car or something like that.
Yeah.
Where, we might get to a point if we really see strong adoption where like the main, like to do a transaction on main chain, it's $30 fee, $40 fee for every transaction.
And it's funny too, because they're all like, now we're like close to 100,000 right now. And they're like, why is the mempool still so low? And it's because people aren't using it, dude. Like people are still using like regular money, so that's why you see the price going up, because it's a storage of value. It's not a method of exchange yet.
Yeah, I see that too. Are you familiar with Gresham's law?
No.
Paul, why don't you pull up Gresham's law real quick?
Sorry, I am
just ask Venice to pull that up.
Spell Gresham for me, please.
It's a Greshams, I believe. Just type in what is Gresham's law. This is a law that has to do with money, like Gresham's law is an economic principle stating that bad money drives out good. When
Mm.
both forms of currency are accepted at face value, here's a breakdown. So, Sir Thomas Gresham, an English financier in the 16th century, although the principle was observed and discussed by earlier economists like Nicholas Copernicus and others. So, this idea of bad money, this refers to currency that has less intrinsic value compared to its face value, or is less trusted or desired than another form of currency. And then good money, which in our case, you have Bitcoin as the good money, and you have the U.S. dollar as bad money, right? And when we say good and bad, what we mean is, this idea of a higher intrinsic value, a more trusted or desired for saving or hoarding, right? So Bitcoin is this, like, I do this myself. Like, I don't want to spend my sats personally.
Yeah.
Like, I don't take joy. It's almost painful for me if I'm doing a transaction and I'm sending somebody Bitcoin.
I only use it. I pieces of art. There are some pieces of art that I've purchased because I think the artist's work is worth it.
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen around you've walked around my room. You see the art that I bought from the Bitcoin conference. It's all around.
Oh yeah, I definitely have a few sick pieces myself, if I say it myself. But I just appreciate the artists, and I think they deserve it because it's proof of work.
You know what? Isn't that fascinating that, like, art, when you look at art, because I mentioned that.
Also, I'm talking about physical art real quick. Sorry to interject. Yeah. Real art, not AI, NFT, like whatever.
That's a whole different rabbit hole we can go down. To me, I appreciate all forms of art, but NFTs, these different things, to me, like, I see their application more as like a digital, record, proof of authenticity, or like, you own this NFT, it's just cryptographically provable membership in a club or something. Like that's the way I kind of really engage with it. Now there are fidenzas and all these different things, and I'm not super down that rabbit hole, but the physical art, this idea of proof of work, art is really the embodiment of that, right? It's like this artist who put all this time and effort, he put this proof of work of his time into making this piece, right? It really it's like, if you think about it from its base principle, it's almost like you're capturing someone's life energy in this. Like,
you're just
their proof of work of, like, they've spent hours or days or weeks or months working on this thing.
Yeah.
Right. I love that.
And I mean, maybe we're the idiots for trading the limited quantity thing for this, like, piece of wood and paint. But, certain pieces of art that, like, kind of hit home that are like, it's
how does it make you feel, right? I mean, it's like,
it's just a subjective thing.
It is very, it is.
But
there is a tie to the physical objective reality, which is this individual human being poured their time and life energy into creating this piece. Yeah. And that can hit you differently, right? It can hit you a different way that it hits me. Yeah. We have our own subjective preferences and opinion, but at the end of the day, proof of work went into making that. Yeah.
So, I guess just a little bit about my story. I guess, should I talk about my story more?
Yeah. But closing thoughts on Gresham's law.
Oh, yes.
What do you think about that? Like, because when I look at Bitcoin, that's what I see. It's like, the bad money drives out the good. It's like, I want to spend dollars. I don't want to spend, like, like, you're probably in the same boat as me. Yeah. It's like, people are like, oh, what's your, I don't even think about, like, my net worth and, like, I don't even think about it in terms of dollars. I think about it in, like, how much Bitcoin can I stack? I think about it in terms of Satoshis.
Yeah. It's like two games. It's like, you got the tax game and then the Satoshi game. So it's like, I don't know how it's going to work out if we're going to still have, I'm pretty sure we're still going to have the dollar. I just don't know how it's going to work. My crystal ball does not go that far into the future.
No doubt about it. I mean, this is just pure speculation, thought experiments,
but I think that if Gresham's law if that's true, then wouldn't that make Bitcoin the bad money?
Based on the definition, the idea of good money versus bad money. The good money has a higher intrinsic value. People prefer to hold that because it doesn't base itself. The government can't print it. So Bitcoin is the good money. The bad money would be the one that, they're constantly pressing a button and printing trillions out. And, debasing you and stealing.
We'll
your
see
life
what.
energy.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with Trump and. Sorry, I don't mean to get too political and stuff. But yeah, it's hard not to, when
it's hard. I mean,
when the
it's
dude
hard not to.
literally says, "Play with your Bitcoin," I'm fine with your Bitcoin. And they're so like, and Doge committee, with Elon and everything.
I mean, as someone who has been operating in the space of running a Web3 facing company in crypto and Bitcoin, it's literally a night and day difference from what we've gotten from this previous administration to what's coming in.
Yeah.
I mean, with the, attacks on the banking infrastructure unconstitutionally with Choke Point 2.0, the banking of, Web3 and crypto companies to, the SEC taking our tax dollars and suing all of the good actors in the space like Kraken and Coinbase. And
biggest hope is that they get rid of aside from getting our privacy back, getting rid of the stupid taxes, like the double gut punch on taxes.
Man, it's just insane. I spend so much time on that bullshit of like just. There's no way to understand it. I mean, the tax code is like this. I mean, like I have no like they're making me sign 50 pages of tax returns. Like I honestly I have no fucking clue what's going on. So like if it's like you come look, it's like how can any reasonable person even understand any of this stuff? They're like, you got this deduction and that deduction and this thing, and then you got to pay this, is that, and capital gains and sales tax and property taxes, and it's like I can't understand it. It's gotten so absurd and so ridiculous that like, and then on top of that, the government just like prints trillions out of thin air by pressing a button. It's like they're screwing you in every single way. It's like, how can we even move forward as society? I mean, how can people live like this? I mean, I'm like, I file my tax returns. It's like, if they want to fuck with you, they can, because it's like, how do you even know any of this?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, it's impossible. Nobody can do that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not like the smartest guy in the world, but I'm not a moron.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, there's no way you just have to trust all these people that look at your Excel spreadsheets and whatever, and they're doing the honest thing. I mean, they're right. I mean, there's just no way to know.
And with Bitcoin, it's kind of like, you don't want an accountant for that. Like, you don't need an accountant for Bitcoin.
Well, I mean, I have a company and I've got people that work for me that depend on me that have, I can't,
unless you're a business, I'm just speaking from pleb perspective.
Pleb perspective, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's why I think it's, it's an interesting thing for taxes, like wash sale and all that stuff, I hope they aren't listening so they don't get rid of the wash sale rule, because I think that was one of the things that Lummis wanted to get rid of, I think. Don't quote me on that.
I wish they would just do like your first $100,000 is like tax free, and then anything over that is like a 10% flat tax, and like just that's it. Like
I'd rather just none at all.
Well, I hear you, but I think let's just do one simple thing, keep it simple. Applies to everybody equally. Everybody gets preferential treatment. Anybody who's the only people who get preferential treatment are people that don't make less than $100,000 or whatever. And have that adjust with the inflation rate every year. Because now it's like the other hidden tax that I found out is like, they print more money, they inflate the thing. Well, guess what? The tax rates are based on the value of the money.
And then they adjust.
So then you're like, it's this creeping thing where like, now your money's worth less and you're getting hit at a higher rate. It's
inflation creep.
It's an inflation creep. Yeah, there's so many. I mean, it's so corrupt. It's such bullshit. Yeah, such bullshit.
So I think, I don't know how it's gonna work with bad money, good money. It's so weird even calling money good or bad.
Well, I mean, again, I'm deep down the money rabbit hole, so you look at different monies throughout history and different, characteristics of money. But I mean, this is classic Gresham's law playing out. Talk about Bitcoin versus dollar versus different types of altcoins and different things, right? I mean,
So, I mean, that's what I think is probably going to happen with small payments and corpos like Visa and MasterCard and all them. But as far as
those are some great insights, and they'll act as the permissioned layers for fast settlement because it'll all be done within their side chain essentially.
Yeah. As far as our privacy though, I definitely fingers crossed on we can still use the main chain privately.
I was reading about something recently. I didn't get a chance to go deep into it. I think it was like It's like some kind of eCash version built on, but using Bitcoin, using Satoshis. Did you know what I'm talking about?
Sounds familiar. Explain.
Paul, see if you can pull that up. See if you can maybe one of the AIs to. I'm blocking on the name right now, but it's like
I guess
Alex Gladstein. He posts a lot about it. But it's like it's a form of eCash, like cryptography implementation using Bitcoin, using Satoshis instead of dollars. So there's like, you know, a way you can, I don't know specifically what it's called. Let's see. It's similar to some of the other stuff that's happening.
I think it's kind of crazy too how the only way that we have privacy in Bitcoin is off-chain transactions too.
Can you find out, Paul? See ask him what the protocol is called. That's working on this right now. No, it didn't give the right answer.
Should I look at Alex Gladstein's profile?
Yeah, you might have to dig through some of his posts. You know, I have it on like my to-do list of something that I need to spend like a couple hours like going down the rabbit hole on. But
yeah.
we don't have to get stuck on that.
Do people know about Samurai Wallet and CoinJoin and what happened?
Most people probably don't.
Probably don't because they never really used the tools, huh?
Yeah. I mean, most people are probably not.
There's a really good website.
Deep down the OPSEC rabbit hole.
Yeah. There's a really good website that the privacy dudes made. Can I shout out the website?
Sure, yeah, go for it.
Yeah,
it's free. We can attach it to the show notes.
freesamurai.com. And it basically explains everything about the privacy rabbit hole from Ethereum, because it started with Romanov making Tornado Cash.
And they went after them.
Yeah,
it was a whole big thing.
And with Ethereum. And then after that, it became Samurai.
It's an extremely dangerous precedent to set, to be going after, you know, developers for creating really open source
code.
I mean, that is like,
because code is speech, and it's freedom of speech, and it's the First Amendment. So it's like
very dangerous rabbit hole to go down. So hopefully we get some common sense back in power here. And, you know, starting in January 20th. And
I mean, if the Ross Ulbricht thing is any notion, it's definitely hopeful. It's bright, but the Ross thing is a little bit different, because Ross just created like an exchange, so to speak, and that's not. It's a big deal, but it's not such a big deal in the way that I'm literally creating privacy for the whole freaking protocol. You know, so that's. I don't know how they're going to look at that. And I know that Romanov is not looking, like his case is not looking too bright right now either.
I'm not caught up on all the details. I just remember being furious when I read about it.
Yeah, I think they want to give him like, I don't know what it was, like 109 years or something nuts in prison. I don't know. It was like,
this is very chilling and disturbing.
Yeah, I mean, don't quote me on anything I say, because I'm just kind of going from my head.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, look what they did. Look what they did to Ross. I mean, that's like, you know, I mean,
double life.
Trump's taking the angle of, you know, just commuting a sentence. I mean, the guy did, whether you agree or disagree with the logic behind it. I mean, putting a non-violent person in jail.
They wanted to like make him a martyr for like,
put him in for like 500 years or something ridiculous.
Yeah, double life.
Yeah. What? So, like, what do you know a lot about the Ross situation?
I mean, I never looked into it that much. Because like I've just been so busy with my own life, and
Trust me, I hear you.
And you know, trying to do everything that hit me. I guess I don't know. It's basically. That's what happened with me with my privacy, because like we had the dust attack, and I used the whirlpool and everything, and then
did you ever figure out like who sent the dust attack? Like,
no.
Was it a nation state actor, or was it a government, or was it just somebody who was?
I think it was
thief that was looking to.
I think it was either someone from Bitcoin Cash, because they were pissed off.
They were just trolling,
so they wanted to like tag everyone. or it was some kind of government agency or something, like some kind of chain and analytics company.
Analysis or something.
Yeah. So I don't know, where should we go from here?
Well, we're kind of like tugging on this whole concept of privacy. You know, how do you respond to critics who argue, you know, that privacy solutions like CoinJoin are enabling illicit activities? Like, what's your perspective on the balance between privacy and regulation in the crypto space? Like,
I mean, I know how there is that argument for, like, you know, bad actors and all that, but like if you think about the dollar, the only reason why the dollar is the dollar and we have it as a real currency system is because people have freedom to enact with it and transact with it privately. Now, if you want to have real freedom, you have to have privacy, because if you don't, literally all that you're doing is creating what you're not wanting, which is a CBDC.
Yeah. No doubt. I mean,
it's just a giant Excel spreadsheet.
Literally have the Cypherpunk'd manifesto on the table here, so I couldn't agree with you anymore.
So,
you know, it's
and like, you're not going to stop people from using their money however they want to.
Yeah.
So to say that they're using it illicitly or whatever, I mean,
you either have a free society or you don't.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
I mean, there's people who were trying to buy the horse tranquilizer thing, right? And like, or like even sending money to the truckers thing, and then they were like shutting it down. That's more of a centralization thing. But at the end of the day, when you think about what money is and stuff, it's like the only way that it can be money is if you have the freedom to use it as money. Because you think about the dollar already has power.
It's a tool. I mean,
yeah,
you know, it's like anything else. Like
they're tools.
We don't shut down the internet because people can do bad things on the internet. Right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You know, we don't surveil and monitor, you know, every little thing somebody does on the internet.
Yeah,
right? It's like,
and it's not going to be possible to.
Yes, there's always going to be bad people doing bad things, like with any tool.
Yeah,
but these tools enable freedom and they enable progress in society and they empower people.
I also think people who say that, you know, to have it's a bad thing to mix the black market with the white market or gray market with, you know, that's actually kind of stupid, because by commingling them, you have more activity on the network. The miner fees would go up, and like all the stuff that these Bitcoiners want to happen would happen. So I think it's like more of a good thing than a bad thing when you think about it, because it's getting more use. Your price is going to go up, so you can number go up. It's going to get rarer, you know, because every transaction takes sats, and so I think by putting more restrictions on stuff, you're actually hurting Bitcoin more than anything else from like all angles. And I know that governments don't like that because they want to have that control.
Yeah.
But with this form of money, it's the first form of money that is truly free. You know, I give Saylor that. I think Saylor is very sorry. I don't mean to touch on Saylor.
No, we can talk about whatever. You know,
but I you know, he's, because I saw that he was a very not good person right off the bat, and very.
What made you feel that way?
Between the way he presents himself and speaks with this matter-of-fact, egoistic tone, and that's fine, you know, when you get to that kind of net wealth and stuff.
I mean, most CEOs are
like that, you know,
very like narcissistic,
and
psychopathic in a lot of ways, but it also is like hand in hand with their success, and
and they're trying to, like, you know, show confidence and stuff, and I think, because if you notice with Saylor, he's never once mentioned anything about Bitcoin privacy.
Yeah.
Like, look back at
I
every
don't
interview ever. He never ever
I don't
talks
think
about
that's an important part of Bitcoin for him. I think he's
no.
what I love about Bitcoin is that Bitcoin is so many different things to so many different people. I talk to people, especially with this pod, like starting to talk to people, and some people are really like interested in the store value component.
Mhm.
Some people are interested in the privacy component.
Yeah.
Some people are interested in the wealth accumulation and what
Mhm.
Saylor's doing, like the glitch in the matrix, like
Yeah.
using the financial system against itself,
Yeah.
borrowing dollars at like 0% interest to
Yeah.
invest them in Bitcoin
Yeah.
to just go buy more Bitcoin. I mean, I think it's a brilliant strategy attack on the matrix, but again, I don't know Saylor personally, so I don't have a
Yeah.
personal opinion on him because I've never met him.
Mhm.
But I like what he's doing.
Yeah.
I like how he's
Yeah. It's very to get the word out and to get more heads interested in it that were very against it or incentivized to be against it.
Yeah.
To make them more positive outlook.
I have
towards it.
I have a Roth IRA that can't invest and it's on a platform that like doesn't have access to anything to Bitcoin. So like for me, MicroStrategy has been fantastic. Like, and it's like, I'm looking at it and I'm like, how can I get exposure to Bitcoin in my Roth IRA that won't let me buy GBT? It won't let me buy like ETFs. It won't let me do anything. It was like my only play was MicroStrategy. And like, I'm not going to pretend like I'm a brilliant genius because all I was like looking was like, how can I get exposure to Bitcoin by doing something in my portfolio that doesn't want me to have exposure to Bitcoin? And MicroStrategy was literally my only option. And then like now it's gone like parabolic. It's like,
I mean, for me,
I just got lucky.
Saylor was a very good salesman for me because when he used the analogy of MicroStrategy is going to be my race car, and I'm kind of big into cars, I was like, well, if it's going to be the fastest car, I might as well gamble a little bit.
Yeah.
So I, gambled, a couple sats on some shares, and it kind of worked out. But
it's trading at like a huge premium.
Oh yeah,
I guess every time it goes, it's worth more than his Bitcoin holdings.
Yeah.
I don't understand the full strategy. I guess he takes, if the shares are trading at a premium, he'll make more shares, buy more Bitcoin. So each share will accumulate more Bitcoin. But it's again, it's kind of like this leverage thing during the bull market, which is great, and then during bear market probably goes down more than.
Let me just say it's, and also, I'm not sure about insider trading and stuff, but I can tell you that it's probably very beneficial to have a company with so much Bitcoin that you can essentially move the market by holding that much coin, and then before that make a strategy towards your company. So you could make more money from your company to buy more Bitcoin.
That's essentially what he's doing. I mean,
but I mean, like, it's more from a more like tell a third party, hey, buy these calls or these puts because we're going to sell or buy this amount of Bitcoin.
You're talking about like, that's like straight up like fraudulent insider trading.
Because,
I mean, I think he's been pretty transparent with exactly what he's doing, and it's like working ridiculously well. And like he's telling everybody ahead of time, hey, here's my plan. I'm just going to keep printing. I'm just going to keep selling shares and like, raising capital to buy more Bitcoin. So my shares are worth like
I just think
I don't know how it all ends, but it's definitely a glitch in the matrix. You can borrow, money at 0%.
Yeah. And
literally just use that money to go buy a bunch of Bitcoin. It's like, it's basically a Bitcoin ETF. I mean, I don't think they've sold any Bitcoin ever.
No.
They're just buying more Bitcoin. And,
no, they did sell. I do remember him saying they did sell, but for tax purposes. Because they wanted to do the wash sale.
The harvesting, loss harvesting.
Yep.
Hey, don't hate the player.
Hate the game. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you gotta. It's his fiduciary duty to make as much money for his shareholders as possible, right? I mean, so the more Bitcoin they hold, the more Bitcoin each share is entitled to.
And coming from the NVIDIA thing, because I was doing options myself, just selling calls, trying to get options premium, because just another form of income. So I mean, you can't do that with Bitcoin. the only way you could do options, at least from what I know, was what was it called? Ledger X, which became FTX derivatives. And now it's like something else. I don't even know. I stopped.
I think that was a company that FTX had bought that was on their balance sheet or something like that. So I remember Ledger X being like one of their assets.
So, I mean, like, I even used them for a second. I stuck, like, you know, a little bit of coin in there just to try it out. But the bid and ask on the spreads was like, like I just, oh my God.
I mean,
so, I mean, there was just no liquidity in there because no one wanted to trade it. But when you have like a you know, what he's doing, inviting all these countries to buy his company, and then like that just, it's a great idea. I got to commend him for doing that.
I mean, the more his stock goes up, the more he can issue off of that said stock, and the more Bitcoin he can buy. It's like this kind of like
Well, I'm just saying from
feedback loop.
From like a pleb perspective, because like I've definitely been selling calls and I've definitely been selling puts on the shares, and it's like, you know, you just like rake it in, because there's so much liquidity going on and it's so volatile. Yeah. It's like a Tesla on crack, you know? So, and hopefully the other companies will start to reflect that too. I don't know why they haven't. There's like a bunch of,
I just don't think they understand it yet or realize what's happening.
Maybe
I know there are more like Meta Planet's another one that's starting to do it, and there's a couple more to announce today and over the past couple of weeks. I think Semler Scientific.
Yeah, Semler. Yeah.
And then
I guess I'm talking more.
Saylor's going to pitch Microsoft.
Yeah.
He's got a 2-minute slot or something.
The public mining companies is what I'm kind of like hinting at.
I'm a big marathon holder personally, and I know they think a lot of that.
Same. I definitely think it's very smart to divest into any company that realizes they need to put it on the Treasury balance sheet kind of thing.
Yeah.
Even like there was some, man, this is so not financial advice. We should have said that from the get-go, huh?
This is DGen Corner.
Right? Yeah,
we're just talking about some degenerate stuff. Some gambling, essentially. Or betting strategically, right? Like calculated risk plays.
There was some AI company, I think it was Genius or whatever, and they're like a penny stock. And they announced that they were going to buy like 100 mil in coin and put it, or like 120 mil and put it on their treasury, and like the thing shot up like crazy. And then there was the other, I forget what the other one is. It's like some kind of therapeutics company or like medical company that also said they're going to put some on their balance sheet, and the thing went up like, 20%. But it's like it's a penny stock, so it's going to bounce around. But still, I bought like a couple shares, not nothing crazy, like, but if it pays out, then and the fiat is still around, which I'm pretty sure it will be, unless they want to change stocks. I mean, that was another thing, how they wanted to tokenize all the stocks. So I don't know if we're all just going to get tokens of the companies or like,
I see that as a very, I think that's inevitable that the stock market will be on a like tokenized blockchain. I think that is a great use case.
Then like, what is it going to be?
Just because of like
backed by, because it's not going to be the dollar anymore. It's going to be like a MicroStrategy token or an Apple token.
Yeah,
or but then what is that going to be worth?
Well, it's worth what a full share would be, but you could fractionalize it, and it could trade 24/7. I mean, you're seeing this with like there's a lot of cool DeFi stuff that's doing this. I think Synthetics is one of the protocols, and it allows some dude in Africa who can't afford a full share of Tesla to like buy 80 cents worth of a fractional share of Tesla like in a decentralized manner by pulling out his 10-year-old Nokia cell phone. Like there's something incredibly powerful about that concept. And I don't think those blockchains, these different altcoin projects or whatever, I'm personally not a maximalist. I'm I'm a Bitcoin first, and as money, like that's Bitcoin to me. And like everything else, like art and different things and NFTs and different protocols, like I have no problem with them. I don't consider them like my store of value money, really. It's more of things to experiment with, and it doesn't necessarily have to fill that same role as Bitcoin for me. So I do see value there. I do see interesting things and empowering things. and like, you know, even with gaming and all this other stuff that's happening, it's like not everything has to be money. Like you can still have fun and do experiments and you know, play around with innovation. But I think that the stock market, and this was, I think Ravencoin, that was like their value prop, what they wanted to do. I think the guy behind what was it? Trying to remember his name off the top of my head. The Ravencoin initial founder backer. He's I don't know why I'm blocking on his name. He overstock.com guy.
Oh, that guy made Ravencoin?
So,
I didn't even know
so
that.
yeah, not Bruce Fenton. These those guys are like the devs and like founders, but he was it just pulled up. Patrick Byrne. Yeah, Patrick Byrne was a big player because he was so mad that like they kept overstock.com was like crushing it. They kept like shorting his company, and he was so mad because they were doing it like these back, like what you were describing, like insider trading, and they were all like ganging up and doing it together. So he was so mad about that. He's like, I know what you're doing is unethical and illegal, but it's like you're doing it all behind closed doors where people can't see the shares and all this shit. He's like, we're gonna put the fucking shares of stocks on a blockchain so we can see what what you motherfuckers are doing. And I think that was the story I heard about why he backed Ravencoin initially. It was going to be this, and I do have like a Ravencoin wallet, and you can actually see, you can issue assets like on chain there, and then have like messages go out to everybody who owns that asset. So I think it's like it's almost like this. I don't think it's really gained a lot of adoption at this point, but like the infrastructure is there to essentially have a parallel, decentralized like stock exchange. If it was utilized by companies, and you know, it exists where you could issue technically assets that represent shares in an ownership of a company, and that could be regulated or not regulated. I mean, those are all these.
I think they're probably going to want to regulate that.
Yeah. I mean, and of course, I mean, you know, but at least you have the transparency on the blockchain there to see who owns what assets of a stock. You know, if it's like a famous investor or whatever, so you can actually see that. There's something to be said for that, to like have that transparency there for that, so you can make sure that like three guys aren't colluding to like rip everybody off with insider trading.
Like as long as it's just done within the company's balance sheet that's made public for everyone, I think that's
well, they're already technically supposed to do that, but it's like after the fact, and you can't really see, you know, who they were talking to 90 days ago, and how did they really all coordinate together. But like if you could see that in real time and like see, okay, why is Warren Buffett and, you know, say George Soros and Bill Gates, they all they all went to a WEF conference in Switzerland, and then, you know, the same time, 9:08 p.m., 9:10 p.m., and 9:11 p.m. they're selling. They're all buying like puts
like
on
puts and then sold shares, and then like
apparently that's what Patrick Byrne was like so furious about. That's why this is the story that I heard, that he was so furious about that. That's why he kind of backed Ravencoin, as like to have this blockchain that has this built-in asset issuance mechanism. Which, you know, interesting, right? Interesting.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think, I don't know. It's going to be an interesting paradigm as far as the market shift. I definitely have been looking at the VIX. The VIX is an interesting, you know, since
the risk, isn't that like a risk metric? Of the market?
It's like, if the market's going to crash, that thing's going to go nuts. But man, sorry, I'm a little bit all over topics.
Let's pop back into privacy a little bit, because that's like, I think your expertise is really focused around that. You know, for our listeners,
I'm going to be honest, very, very straight. I should have probably said this at the beginning. I'm like an absolute idiot. I'm not a coder. I'm not a programmer or anything. I'm just a pleb. I probably shouldn't even be in the seat.
Yes, you should.
There are so many other better privacy advocates than me.
No doubt. I mean, you know, there's different people that but you know what? It's relatable when you hear from a pleb, right? Like it's relatable. And, you know, whether you're, you know, talk to Jameson Lopp, you know, whether you're Jameson Lopp or, you know, you're just a pleb. I mean, that's, you know, everybody has value and insights and, you know, experiences to educate people with and to be knowledgeable about. Yeah. So,
I mean, I'm not trying to sell nothing other than freedom here.
Yeah.
So,
So let me just ask you this question then. Like, what practical advice do you have, right? Like, not everyone's going to be as skilled or as private, with their OPSEC as you, but like, what are like some of the most basic, practical things you can offer? Like, are there any specific tools, habits, mentalities, that have helped you the most?
So it's really hard now, ever since a few months ago when the DOJ came down on Samurai and the Whirlpool. I'll be honest with you, I haven't made a Bitcoin transaction at all ever since that happened. Oh man, can I go ADD here? Because we were talking about overstock. Actually,
Go for it, man.
That was
Hop
my
around.
first Bitcoin transaction.
Really
Was
using
to overstock.
Wow, that's fascinating.
I bought a rug.
So Patrick
like
Byrne was an
a floor
early
rug.
adopter of,
Yeah,
he wanted to accept Bitcoin as payment.
it's like the most expensive rug that I like. Well, actually, I don't own it anymore because it got so. I just had to throw it away. But yeah, that rug was like, I don't even know how many Satoshis it's hot though. But that was my first experience, like just holding the phone and being like, here's the QR code and
Scan it.
That's just how this works now. It's not like I punch in my name and my credit card number and everything.
The company gets all your personal private information and
I was just like,
your credit card and then it gets
this
stolen.
is freaking awesome, dude. So, I don't know, with privacy moving forward here, I would say the hardest thing about privacy is to start with how to acquire, because the KYC AML stuff.
Oh God, we could spend an hour talking just about that.
And I don't want to talk about it because it's so much. But I think for total noobs, all right, like you're totally stepping into Bitcoin, or maybe you just started to get into it. People should learn about the KYC AML stuff. Which, should I talk about how to get it without KYC?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you have a suggestion, I mean,
so other than
you do talk a lot about separating UTXO management, separating different holdings.
So
I mean, that's what I try to teach people. It's like, hey, like if you buy this on Coinbase, like it's okay to accumulate. Like you can buy Bitcoin there and like accumulate it, etc. Send it to your ledger, but like that is linked KYC AML to you.
I guess so. When you buy from the exchange, I mean, it's like permanently attached to you. So the only way out of the KYC AML is to just sell it, and then you have to go back into it, and without the KYC, and the avenues to do that are like slim to none, especially if you're trying to get it in bulk. There is a way though, through ATMs.
Expensive, but yeah,
it's expensive because they jump the price. And it's nuts. I think they do like a 35% ish markup or something.
It's like 20, but yeah, it's significant. I mean, there's a fee and it's very significant.
Let me put it to you this way. I went like another month when it was sitting around 69, and I went to the Athena. It was Athena ATM. Before that, I was using CoinFlip. And the way that you buy no KYC is they limit you to right now to up to $2,000 maximum. And you still need a phone number. So that's a little bit tricky because you basically need to get, it used to be you could just get like a SIM card and just stick it in like from Mint Mobile or whatever. And like, you'd be good. But I don't think that works anymore. You have to like have a legit number that's tied to like one of the big three kind of thing, like T-Mobile or AT&T.
I think you can there's different,
you can through some websites
get phone numbers.
Yeah. I think it's text verified. So you can like spend your Bitcoin to get like a private number to send the SMS to your phone, so that way you can use the ATM to get the coin. And the way you do that in mass is you just keep getting phone numbers and have a big stack next to you. And I know that, this is what was funny was I was actually at Bitcoin conference the other year or whatever in Miami, and I had a big stack on me, and I went up to the, I forget which, I think it was CoinFlip. and I had like 4 phones on me because they were saying how, oh, there's no fees. And when you buy it from here at the conference, and I was like, oh shit, stacking time. So I took all my devices, and I took a huge wad, and I stood next to their ATM. And after I bought my first amount, and it was really funny too, the silence as they hear the machine go because it's sticking in bills. And then after I was done with the first amount, I took out my next device, and one of the reps there, he was like, "Hey, you can't do that. It's only like once per time." And I was like, "What? You're going to prevent me from having freedom? You're not going to let me use money to get real money? I can't. Isn't that the antithesis of what this shit is about? I can't actually use my money?" And they just shut up.
They did.
And like one of the other main people running the booth, she was like, "You should probably step back from this guy." And I just kept doing it. And then they gave me a hat, and I was like, "Thanks so much. Peace." And I'm never using your stupid fucking ATM ever again because I'm not supporting you guys.
You know, I feel bad for them because, you know, they're like required by law to do that. And if they don't, they can be arrested and attacked by the state, essentially.
It's like something that you can't prevent.
Yeah.
How are you going to prevent that? It's like a stupid law. It's like they make these laws that are stupid, but it's like people are still.
I mean, KYC AML is probably the stupidest thing that's ever happened. I literally got and that's the problem with the state and government. I mean, they just keep and Elon and Doge and Vivek have been like just railing on this. It's like the laws never go away. They just keep stacking dumb shit and like making dumb, stupid laws over and over. And it's like at some point it just gets so ridiculous and Orwellian. Like KYC AML is like one of the worst possible things for people.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't work. Like you don't catch like look what you just described. Like you can do it if you're like it just doesn't stop anybody.
Yeah.
Like the evidence is like I think they catch 1% of the criminals that go. That
you know who loves it?
99%.
The criminals.
The criminals love it
because they're the ones that are getting the database full of everybody's info.
And that's exactly like I just got a letter the other day. It's sitting on my desk. It's like, sorry, sir. You know, your social security number, yours. You know, this information. That like everything's been leaked in a giant database hack. It's like. This has got to be challenged at some point. This is so unconstitutional to have government requiring companies to collect these treasure troves of data on people that they have no business having any of that data, and they don't take care of it. And then, you know, who is accountable when grandma gets her, you know, her social security number stolen, gets scammed out of hundreds of thousands of dollars? I mean, you're not stopping the criminals. They're all getting through anyway. Yeah. All you're doing is putting a massive burden on the average person, the average citizen who's going around their business, trying to be free, just trying to live a good life.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's just about taxes, I think, at the end of the day.
But it's not even taxes. I mean, it just creates this regulatory monster burden on, you know, all these small businesses and different business operations and puts everybody's information at risk. And it actually makes the world a worse place because now you've got, you know, hundreds of thousands, millions of people's information sitting on these black marketplaces just being constantly sold, bought, and people getting scammed left and right. Yeah. I mean, it's really a terrible, terrible policy.
So I guess just to go back to your best practices, I think, the best way to do it is no KYC through the ATM or, you know, I think even if you transact, like if I gave you a briefcase full of cash and you gave me the Bitcoin, I think, is that still like illegal? Like you're not allowed to transact in that way?
I don't know, man. I'm not sure. They've got so much bullshit and so many laws. It's hard to even know whether, you know, there's unconstitutional laws in the book right now that are an obvious violation of, you know, our constitutional rights that, you know, say you need to like file a money report on people of a certain amount. I mean, you know, and when they made these laws, it was like, you know, $10,000. That's the limit or something that all these people are required to report on. And the problem is that was made in, you know, 70, 60, 50, 70, you know, it's like the value of $10,000 there would have bought you 2 houses. Like now, like the value of $10,000 doesn't even buy you a used car. It doesn't even buy you, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't even pay it's ridiculous. And like 10 years from now, $10,000 you might go to buy a PlayStation. It might be $10,000. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we just don't know, right? So the laws that were written so long ago, I mean, it just needs to be repealed. It's unconstitutional. You shouldn't have to.
We'll
you know,
see
it's
what
not-
happens when they get into office on the 20th.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, like it's an uphill battle though. Like the swamp is like
Yeah.
unbelievable.
So I guess make sure that you're using. I would recommend going to that website, freesamurai.com. They have the APK files to the old Samurai wallets.
Mhm.
So you can download that software onto your Android if you want to, which also I would recommend people look into de-Googling their Androids before they
yeah,
go ahead and do that.
I'm a huge, I mean,
The
I could spend
Graphene-
another hour. Graphene OS, I've heard good things, but
Are you sure it's .com? It
free-
appears to be down.
Free Samurai.
I think you're forgetting a O in Samurai.
Yeah, SAMOURAI.
That would be helpful.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, that's it. And so I think people should definitely grab those files and definitely de-Google their phones. They want to have a little bit more privacy on a mobile side too.
I try not to use any Google products. I mean,
Yeah.
I find them a deeply unethical company. And
Well, I mean, just as a daily driver device, as an alternative to an iPhone, I use both just because, my mom, she's stuck to the iPhone. So I got an
iPhone, I mean, Apple at least has some level of like more like
Yeah.
they're I mean, historically they've been a more private.
I still don't trust them at all.
I mean, no doubt about it, man. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
But
and also the when you de-Google your device, they tend to give you a lot of interesting privacy tools too, like PGP and all that. So that was how I learned about PGP and all that.
pretty good privacy.
Yeah. So also running your own node definitely is a big deal. Don't do any transactions at all on a public node.
Can you explain the risk of that? Like, can you explain that at all?
It's like,
why not on a public node? Why does that matter? Why is it important to you?
it's like worse than getting a venereal disease. It's like, because when you use someone else's public node, it just exposes all of your transactions, and it exposes, I believe, your XPub as well, right?
So when you say all of your private transactions, do you mean just associated with that particular IP, or like what do you?
Well, I mean, it looks at your XPub, I believe, right, and it shows all of your unused addresses and stuff, and all of your used addresses.
Oh, really?
And they can see everything.
But whoever's running that node would have to actively be doing that. They'd have to be like a malicious actor running that node.
Yeah, I mean,
I see what you're saying.
and most of them kind of are, because they're all working with someone or working by themselves to do something nefarious, I would assume. And it's just not a good idea. It's like, don't trust, verify is the number one rule of Bitcoin, right? So you want to run your own, I guess you could say, like talking device to the main word of Satoshi. So run your own node.
Definitely something to look into doing. I mean,
Yeah.
it's definitely not for everybody, but definitely a rabbit hole if you're serious about privacy and that is important to you.
Yeah.
It's definitely something you want to look into.
And I think everybody who is very serious about Bitcoin and wants to actually be sovereign should be doing these things. Just even if they don't right off the bat, because like me, I mean, I didn't know shit, and I just kind of learned about it through the dust attack and everything that happened to me. And I don't expect a lot of other people, because they probably didn't get dust attack, and usually dust attacks, they only happen to larger UTXOs. So it's even more dangerous now, so that we don't, because we don't have any form to protect our forward privacy. So you see all these people on Bitcoin Twitter, they're like, oh, fees are low, consolidate. Well, what if you consolidate all your stuff and then someone dust attacks you? You're kind of screwed.
There's what I found is there's trade-offs for everything, right? So it depends what you're really focused on, right? Like if you're not good at managing different wallets and different things, then maybe consolidation is less of a risk because then you won't lose your funds than losing some OPSEC. I mean, so
yeah,
it's always about trade-offs.
Yeah.
There's always trade-offs.
I think it's just a matter of, how much you're working with. For most people, I mean, I'm talking, so, because most people don't have unless you're like crazy net wealth, and you're like really deep down in it because this is kind of the reality of the situation. But most plebs that don't have a lot and they're trying to get into it, this probably isn't as relevant, but it is something that should be still taken into consideration because, like I said earlier, someone really wants to, there's people that have done stuff for less money in the past.
Yeah.
So even if you have like low 6 figures or something like that, or even high 5 figures, and someone sees that on chain, hey, no one's going to care if I $5 wrench attack this guy, because it's not that much money in comparison to some other dude that has like a crazy roll of like millions worth in coin. So it almost makes you more of a target by being a pleb than a big entity.
I hope not.
Yeah. But I think though, and also when you finally get to the point of purchasing your UTXOs, labeling is a massive thing, and I should take my own advice here because I definitely don't label all of my stuff because I kind of, instead of using labels, what I do is I just create new wallets. And then I just name the wallet whatever, and then I'll put those UTXOs in that wallet.
Yeah.
Which, is a little bit more risky because you don't want to lose all the seed keys.
Yeah, you gotta have good key management.
Yeah. Sure. But it's just a bit easier for me to separate it out that way. But definitely labeling is a big deal. It's a lot easier to label stuff on a desktop using Sparrow wallet instead of using mobile. And also, I don't know if they fixed it, but every time you update, I think the labels disappear. They may stay now, but
you're talking about like within Treasure or Ledger,
yeah,
that type of thing.
Yeah. So when you go to update the software, and say you had like a $50 UTXO or like 100 and then 150
My
UTXO.
understanding is on the same device, it will keep the name, the labeling won't change. But if you restore on another device, there's no cloud talking to each other, so the wallets are just going to show up, and you need to know.
Yeah, this one was this, and this one was this transaction for this.
Yeah, exactly.
And then when you go to load up a new wallet, it's like they're all blank, and you don't know which one is which. So I think that's why I use the separate wallets, because it's a lot easier for me to just name the wallet when I need it, and then I know that all those UTXOs are this or that. Excuse me. Other than that, I would say best privacy practices.
I think you've hit a lot of great ones.
Yeah,
some good stuff.
I can't think of anything else that you can do other than just shutting the fuck up about Bitcoin in general.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot from dealing with so many haters of Bitcoin, or envious people, or curious people, that the less you say, the better, and let them come to you. Or if it gets mentioned in conversation, then you can kind of allude a little bit and talk more about it. But it's hard to find people that are on the same wavelength. So it's best to just be careful about, how much you say. at the end of the day with who you're saying it with.
Loose lips sink ships.
Yeah.
I hear
And
you. Any closing thoughts for us?
we're on a podcast talking about it. It's probably the worst.
But my larger mission is just to educate people.
Yeah,
I got a text today that was, I'll pull it up from, because we run a local meetup where we teach education, right? We're not deep down the OPSEC rabbit hole. We're just teaching the very basics, like seed phrase management.
But I think
helping people from themselves, right?
I think the OPSEC and the basic fundamentals kind of go hand in hand. Because
when you start talking about dust attacks and UTXOs, I mean, that's like people's eyes glaze over, man. It's like a whole nother level. You have to have enough, invested and, to a point where it's like, okay, this really matters.
Mm-hmm.
And like, if I lost this, like, and for everybody, that's a different number, right? So when you get to that point, then you peel back the next layer of the onion.
Yeah.
So most people are still, struggling to understand even what a blockchain is and, why does this password matter? And, I got people that come to the meetup for the first time after they've, hey, somebody asked me for my seed phrase. They said my wallet was at risk and they just lost what they've invested.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like you pay for your education. So I try to save people from themselves first.
No,
and educate them and teach them.
Very good.
I got a message earlier that was like, hi, Maddie. I wanted to thank you for your good advice over the years to stick with BTC and dollar cost averaging, right? So like those, like that's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
Like I want to, help people, help themselves, right? And really, stay focused. So
because number go up LARP is the first part of what pulls everyone into Bitcoin.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah. And I think Naval, there's a couple great quotes, but I think Naval Ravikant had a great one. Was like, this is a huge innovation just dressed up as dressed up as a get rich quick scheme or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, and Satoshi thought about that game theory when he designed the protocol. I mean, that was discussed in the early, Bitcoin talk forums about this feedback loop and this game theory of like price going up, scarcity, bringing people in, adoption. I mean, like that was all part of the conversation. It was intentionally designed to sort of have that feedback loop. And I think it's a powerful feedback loop. And then you start going into cryptography and computer science, and even we touched a little bit on the history of money and different types of monies and all these different things, and just like, wow,
it's a lot.
Such
I mean,
a rabbit hole.
There's not just one. There's so many. So it's very. I don't even know how long we've been talking for.
It's been great. I mean,
but I mean, it's a lot for like normie regular people. I hate like saying it like that, but it's it's a lot for a regular person to just really focus and concentrate on a subject as massive as this.
I'm hoping that as we progress, and we're already seeing this, like even with wallets, like I'm watching this with, initially I had people like learning how to use that tiny little ledger device to like store their stuff. And then like, I told them, explain, they're like, I don't know if like, I've got these elderly ladies, they're like 80 years old trying to do this. And like, hey, give your granddaughter the seed or your daughter or whatever. But like, I can't really see this. I'm like, don't, just be patient. Like it will get better over time. I promise you. And then watching that to like the Ledger Nano X and like, now I can see a little bit better. It's a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
And then boom, now we're on to like the Ledger, what is it? The Ledger Stacks and the Ledger.
I don't even know. I just use a seed signer.
Yeah. I like the Ledger Stacks. I think is like really impressive. Like it has this beautiful graphical user interface, the screen. I mean, I think like I love that. Right. And hopefully in the future, a lot of this, my vision for this is like in the future, it won't matter as much because everybody will be using it, but like also at the same time, a lot of these privacy tools will be built into the application. Like the coin joins will be just a natural part of a transaction. There will be systems and protocols in place that make it easy for people to remain private and to do these things and to benefit from that privacy.
Yeah,
and hopefully we were able to build those tools and we don't continue to lock up our open source devs and violate the United States Constitution.
Yeah. Hopefully, I don't know. We'll see what happens in the very near future. Yeah. Hopefully, no other crazy world calamity event, doomer things happen. But yeah, as pessimistic as I am, I'm a little bit of a doomer myself, to be honest with you. But as pessimistic as I am, it's very optimistic about everything that is on the way. I hope that they don't just look at Ross and they do look at everything. And those dudes get out immediately and we can get back to where we were.
That would be nice. I think we're in a position where we've got the right people that believe in the Constitution, believe in freedom. Might not agree on everything, right? If you look at Trump's cabinet of a bunch of former Democrats, even that have been assembled, like the Tulsi Gabbards of the world, and the JD Vances and the Vivek Ramaswamis and Elon, and like all these people that are contributing different areas that might, have different viewpoints on certain things, but they believe in the America that our founders created. They believed in these core fundamental ideals of liberty and privacy and freedom, right? And this the culture of America and the founding of America, right? So we need to get back to that, because right now this, the founding fathers were very clear that like government was like it's necessary evil to be tolerated and limited, and like all this stuff, and like we've grown into this thing that's just like this thing is out of control. I mean, the grift, the stealing from the population, the money printing. I mean, all these different things that are happening. It's time for America to buck up a little bit and get back to its roots. And I think we're on the way there. And I'm excited about the next 4 years. So on that note, let's close it out.
All right.
The secret boss himself. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.